Have you ever picked up your cat, talked to them, or tried to show affection throughout the day? It feels like you're doing the right thing, and most people don't realize anything could be wrong. But what if the truth is, some of these habits are quietly stressing your cat without you noticing? The signs are subtle, almost invisible, and it's more common than you think, which means you might be doing this right now. Here are the most common mistakes. 1. The hidden stress of disturbing your cat's sleep. There's a quiet moment most people don't think twice about, when your cat is resting peacefully and you reach down to pick them up just because they look too comfortable to resist. It feels like affection, like you're sharing a warm, harmless interaction, and honestly, most people don't realize anything about it could be wrong. But what's actually happening in that moment is very different from how it looks. Cats enter a light sleep state where their nervous system is still alert, always ready to react to sudden changes, and when they're lifted without warning, their body shifts instantly from rest to defense without any time to process safety. That sudden loss of control triggers a stress response, even if they don't struggle or make a sound. Over time, these small interruptions start to build, and your cat may begin to stay more alert instead of fully relaxing, or quietly choose to rest farther away from you. That's where the problem starts, because what feels like closeness to you can slowly feel unpredictable to them. From your cat's perspective, it's like finally relaxing, and then being moved without understanding why. So the simple rule is this: if your cat is resting, let them wake up and come to you, instead of picking them up in that moment. 2. Why removing the hunt confuses your cat's mind. In many homes, food quietly becomes the center of the relationship, the small routine that happens without much thought, pouring kibble into the same bowl, in the same spot, at roughly the same time each day. It seems harmless, even responsible, because your cat is fed, satisfied, and never goes hungry. Most people assume this is exactly what a cat needs, but over time, that simple routine starts to replace something much deeper in your cat's mind, and that's where it begins. Cats are not just eaters, they are hunters, and their brains are wired for a sequence that includes searching, stalking, and capturing before food ever appears. When that process is removed completely, their internal rhythm slowly disconnects from what their instincts expect. What's actually happening is a kind of quiet imbalance, where energy builds up with nowhere to go, and the brain never reaches that natural point of release. At first, it's subtle, maybe a little restlessness, maybe bursts of activity at odd hours, but slowly it can turn into frustration, overeating, or even withdrawal. The difficult part is that it all looks normal. From the outside, just a calm cat eating from a bowl, but inside, something important is being skipped every single day without you noticing. From your cat's perspective, food just appears out of nowhere, without meaning or effort, and that disconnect changes how they experience both their environment and you. So the simple shift is this: don't just feed your cat, give them a chance to chase, hunt, or work for their food, even in small ways, before the bowl ever goes down. 3. The silent damage of a dry food. Only diet. There's a quiet routine that happens every day, often in the same corner of the kitchen, where a bowl sits filled with dry food, and your cat returns to it again and again, grazing in small bites throughout the day. It looks stable, even ideal, because the food is always there, and your cat never seems desperate or hungry. From your perspective, it feels like you're giving them freedom and consistency at the same time. But beneath that routine, something more subtle begins to shift. Cats evolved getting most of their moisture from fresh prey, not from a bowl of dry food, and their natural drive to drink water is surprisingly low. So when their diet is mostly dry, their body starts operating with less hydration than it actually needs. And this happens quietly, without obvious signs. At first, nothing seems wrong. Maybe they drink a little here and there. Maybe everything looks normal, but slowly their system begins to compensate, placing more strain on their kidneys and urinary system over time. That strain doesn't show up all at once, it builds in the background day after day, until small imbalances can turn into discomfort, and eventually into more serious issues that feel like they came out of nowhere. Most people never connect it back to something as simple as what's in the bowl, because the change is so gradual and so easy to overlook. From your cat's perspective, their body is constantly working a little harder than it should, just to stay balanced, so the simple adjustment is this. Start adding moisture into their routine. Even small amounts of wet food or water mixed into meals can quietly shift their body back toward what it naturally expects. 4. How everyday noise overwhelms your cat's senses. The room feels calm, filled with soft background noise, maybe a TV playing, music drifting through the air, conversations overlapping as the day moves on. And from a human perspective, it's a comfortable, lived-in space. Your cat is there too, sitting nearby, watching, existing quietly within that same environment, and it seems like they've adjusted just fine. But their world is built on a very different sensitivity, and what feels normal to you can slowly become overwhelming to them in ways that aren't immediately obvious. Cats hear higher frequencies, notice subtle vibrations, and process constant sound in a way that never really fades into the background. So when noise is continuous, even at low levels, their nervous system stays slightly alert, never fully settling. You might notice small things, like their ears twitching more than usual, or choosing higher, more distant resting spots, but these signals are easy to overlook because nothing looks wrong. Over time, that constant stimulation can quietly wear on them, making true relaxation harder to reach and keeping their body in a mild state of tension. From your cat's perspective, it's like trying to rest in a space that never fully goes quiet. So the simple shift is this: create small pockets of real silence during the day, even brief moments where the environment softens, allowing your cat to fully settle without competing noise around them. 5. The subtle problem with constant physical closeness. There's a kind of comfort in always keeping your cat close, letting them sit on your lap whenever they want, pulling them in when they pass by, or gently holding them just a little longer because it feels like bonding. It's warm, familiar, and it feels like you're giving them exactly what they need. Over time, this becomes part of the rhythm between you, something that seems to reinforce closeness without any downside. But slowly, almost unnoticed, that constant closeness can start to blur an important boundary your cat naturally relies on. Cats are wired to control their own space, choosing when to approach, when to retreat, and how long to stay in contact. And when that choice is repeatedly interrupted, even in small ways, a quiet tension begins to build. What's actually happening is a subtle loss of control, where their ability to regulate distance gets replaced by your timing instead of theirs. At first, it might look like nothing, maybe a slight hesitation before approaching, maybe shorter visits, but over time it can turn into avoidance, where your cat still cares about you but feels less safe fully relaxing around you. The hardest part is that it all comes from affection, from wanting to be close, which is why most people never notice it happening. From your cat's perspective, closeness starts to feel unpredictable instead of chosen. So the simple shift is this: let your cat be the one who decides when contact begins and when it ends, and you'll notice that they stay longer and come back more often on their own. 6. What happens when you misread your cat's behavior? Most people believe that if a cat isn't reacting, then everything is fine, that calmness means comfort, and silence means trust. It's a reassuring idea, and it makes everyday interactions feel easy to understand. But the truth is, cats don't always show discomfort in ways we expect, and that's where the misunderstanding begins. What looks like tolerance can actually be quiet restraint, where your cat chooses not to react rather than showing you something is wrong. Inside, their body can still register tension, but instead of expressing it outwardly, they suppress it because their instinct leans toward avoiding conflict rather than confronting it. Over time, this creates a pattern where small signals go unnoticed: a slight tail flick, a pause before approaching, a subtle shift away, all dismissed because nothing dramatic happened. That repeated misreading slowly changes how your cat communicates, and eventually they may stop trying altogether, becoming more distant, less expressive, and harder to read. From your cat's perspective, it's like speaking in a language that no one responds to, so the effort fades. And that's where the real distance forms, not from one moment, but from many small ones that passed, without being understood. So the simple shift is this: Start paying attention to the smallest changes in your cat's body language and respond early before silence replaces communication entirely. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Did this change how you see your cat a little? And what's your cat's name? I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this, feel free to like and subscribe for more quiet insights like this.